Pakistan gave a blunt thumbs down to Donald Trump's approach of involving it in the Abraham Accords. So, what is the reason behind such a strong denial of Pakistan against any normalization of ties with Israel? What are Abraham Accords and what it means for the Iran versus Israel-US confrontation? To what extent Pakistan now can act as a mediator between Iran versus US, and what it bodes for the overall US versus Pakistan relationship? This all we are going to discuss in this particular video. So first of all, to give you the context of this entire issue, first let us try to understand what are Abraham Accords that Pakistan is vociferously discarding and rejecting. The Abraham Accords were brokered during the first term of President Trump's presidency in the United States of America, where he attempted to normalize relationship between Israel and several Arab states. These states were largely in Gulf countries such as United Arab Emirates, Bahrain. Later on, some of the African countries such as Morocco and Sudan joined the accord as well. Overall, the agreement was hailed by President Trump in the Washington as a major global geopolitical win for the US administration, as a strategic breakthrough to some extent was achieved, as these countries showed willingness to normalize trade with Israel and with Israel as such. Now we know that many of these countries do not see Israel eye to eye. The reason is because of the Palestine issue, as almost we can say all of the Gulf countries, all of the Muslim world, Arab world that you have, they support cause of Palestine. They want Palestine to be established as an independent separate state along with Israel in the same region as such. So that's why for many years there were no strong diplomatic breakthrough. There were no strong diplomatic relations between Israel and these countries. So that to some extent was changed. However, critics have argued that they are simply institutionalized an anti-Iran regional bloc while sidelining Palestinian statehood hopes as such. So that is the criticism. Now let us try to understand what is going on right now. Now Trump, took charge of America as the 47th president, in the second term, and he since then has reportedly encouraged more and more Muslim nations to join the Abraham Accord. Pakistan also was discussed as a strategically significant country. We have seen to some extent after coming of Trump as American president, relation between US and Pakistan to some extent has strengthened, and this was clearly seen as it was allowed to play a role of mediator in the Iran versus US-Israel crisis as such. So pressure was linked to the broader Middle East realignment, as US administration is willing to bring Pakistan also in the same fold, where the countries such as UAE and other countries such as Bahrain and Morocco exist. Focus is on anti-extremism and regional cooperation narratives, and it is overall seen as a part of broader Trump's foreign policy legacy. Why? Because he again want to portray his presidency as the duration where US achieved a major breakthrough in to some extent resolving the Israel-Palestine issue, Israel-Iran issue and all that. Pakistan has strongly rejected it. They have stated that this is something which is not acceptable to us, and they are formally rejecting any kind of attempt to normalize ties between the state of Israel and the Pakistan. The reason is simple, because they say that it comes from the basic policy that Pakistan has followed in the international diplomacy, where they support the cause of Palestinian, and they cannot accept that Israel will exist as an entity, as a country, while Palestine will not have a separate nation. Government stated no change will take place in the official policy, where it strongly encourages both countries to exist side by side. That was also something that we see was the outcome of the resolution passed by United Nations. Two-state solution, as popularly it is called as. Two-state solution is something that Pakistan vociferously advocates for. Emphasis is on justice and a Palestinian statehood, without which they cannot be thinking about normalizing ties with Israel. Public messaging remained direct and uncompromising in nature. So Pakistani leadership also have tried to portray themselves at a strong footing, saying that no matter what kind of relations they have with US, what kind of pressure they will experience from the US administration, they will not compromise to any extent with the Palestinian cause. Now, why Pakistan opposes recognition of Israel? So, to some extent, we can say it is coming from historical regions as well, as Pakistan has historically supported Palestine since its independence. It has no formal diplomatic ties with Israel, right? Strong domestic religious and political sensitivities are there. We know that even if the government of Pakistan to some extent try to or is willing to compromise because of its national interest, strategic interest, it cannot go against the wishes and general consensus among its population, as it would cause further crisis, domestic political crisis in Pakistan as well. So Pakistani government understand that the local Pakistani public supports Palestinian cause. They do not want any kind of normalization, which is right. There is a fear of backlash from Islamist and opposition group as well, right? We have so many groups operating in Pakistan, which are kind of terrorist group, which have threatened and targeted many part of Pakistan itself. A lot of terrorist attacks we have seen taking place in Pakistan also. So such groups, extremist groups, can be emboldened, and that is something Pakistani government and military would not want. Kashmir-Palestine comparison often is also used in the political discourse as such. Domestic political factor, however, is the single most important reason here, as the public opinion in Pakistan largely is pro-Palestine, and that has to do obviously with the historical linkages, with the affiliation they have, the same religion as such. Political parties oppose any kind of normalization openly, and this is something again we are seeing a broad consensus. It's not that just the ruling party does not want the normalization, even the opposition parties have similar stance as far as the Israel-Palestine cause is concerned. Religious organizations, to some extent and to a large extent, we can say in the case of Pakistan, influence the public sentiment, and there is a risk that if Pakistani government goes against the wishes of these organizations, the crisis will be unfolding soon. Army and civilian leadership is cautious on the issue, as we know that Pakistan is facing economic crisis of its soul. It is facing along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border terrorism-related crisis because of the activities of TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. So apart from that, they do not want to create and put themselves in another crisis. So any policy shift could trigger a nationwide protest, and that's something that Pakistan would try to we can say minimize as such. Now, what is the Pakistan's strategic concern? First of all, it has a desire to maintain leadership image in the Muslim world. And if Pakistan compromises on the basic rationale itself, basic premise of the leadership itself, that means its role would significantly reduce. It would lose support of the other Muslim Islamic countries as well. Relations with Saudi Arabia and Iran remain important to Pakistan. So if it goes ahead and joins Abraham Accord, we know that relation with the Iran itself and Saudi Arabia itself would also kind of decline. Concern over regional polarization in West Asia and balancing ties with China, Gulf states and Turkey. This is the major policy, international diplomatic goal of Pakistan, and it want to avoid internal instability as well as the economic challenges. Now we have seen that many of the Gulf countries have actually joined the Abraham Accord, such as major Gulf countries like UAE, we have seen joining it. But that is where the basic difference comes, because if you look at the Gulf states versus Pakistan, Gulf states have achieved economic diversification and they are further working in this area. Like you take UAE, so oil and gas used to be their major source of revenue a decade back. Now they have heavily shifted toward attracting foreign investment, acting as a regional economic hub, as well as also tourism is being promoted here. Pakistan, on the other hand, is largely concerned with the security and ideological challenges in the country. Second, Gulf state enjoys close strategic ties with the United States of America, as we have seen that most of the air defense systems that these countries use come from US. US not only has the presence in the form of the air defense system, but also they have military bases in many of these Gulf countries such as Bahrain, UAE, Qatar and all that. On the other hand, Pakistan has its own complex domestic politics challenge. Osama bin Laden, who was responsible for 9/11 attack in the United States of America, was caught in the territory of Pakistan itself. So we have seen kind of up and down in the bilateral relation between Pakistan and US in the last 1 to 2 decades. Third, Gulf states have less pressure because population size is very, very small, and majority of these people are dependent on government to some extent. Government take good care of them. While Pakistan has large public opposition, and any step or missteps by the government could trigger a political backlash in the country. Then regional business opportunities they are looking forward to. And that's why normalization of ties was one of the such a strategy where they could attract more investment in their countries. Palestine-linked foreign policy, however, defines the diplomatic approach taken by Pakistan as such. Overall, we can say that if you compare on these parameters, Pakistan's situations is significantly different from the Gulf monarchy, and that's why Gulf countries have joined Abraham Accord. However, Pakistan cannot afford to follow their footsteps and become part of this accord. So, as we know that Trump was very much interested in bringing Pakistan on this accord, in this accord, and when Pakistan denies it, what is the possible impact on US-Pakistan relation? So definitely, as you know that Trump is known more for taking a heavy-handed approach, taking kind of strong approach. So it may create friction with future US diplomatic efforts. Pakistan still values strategic ties with Washington. That is something which Pakistan cannot ignore, because we know that since coming of Trump itself, we have seen many times leadership of Pakistan, whether it is military leadership or the civilian leadership, they have visited Trump. They have tried to personally woo them. So cooperation is expected to continue as far as the spheres of trade, security, and regional issues is concerned. US may continue encouraging gradual engagement. US also is not going to suddenly break all the diplomatic relations with Pakistan just because of this issue. They can try to apply pressure, but to try to also encourage them gradually if they come on board. Issue likely is to remain diplomatically sensitive for both of the countries. Now, what is going to the broader geopolitical implications? So definitely it shows it highlights the division within the Muslim world itself. That means some Gulf countries are on board with US as far as Abraham Accord is concerned. Some countries are vociferously opposing it. Some countries are there, they cannot see eye to eye with Israel itself. They do not even consider that Israel is a legitimate state. And like if you talk about the Pakistan on its passport does not even mention Israel where Pakistani people can go as such. So all this is a clear reflection of the division as far as the Israel-Palestine issue is concerned in the Muslim world itself. There is no cohesion, there is no uniformity as far as the international, as far as the diplomatic policy is concerned. And thus it also shows limits of normalization momentum, as we have seen that Washington celebrated the Abraham Accord as one of the major breakthrough achieved in the Israel-Palestine issue, but this clearly is not the case. Normalization momentum is having its own limit as such, that further is challenge because of the Iran issue. Palestine issue remains emotionally powerful globally. It draws a strong sentiment of Muslim world, no matter which country, which part of the world these countries are located in. South Asian geopolitics are increasingly linked with the Middle East affairs. That is also it had also to do with the economic dependency as far as the energy security is concerned, because anything that happens in the Middle East clearly has implications on energy security, and that is being reflected in the current Iran war also. And it reflects the changing global alliance structure as well. Now, what is the possible future scenario? So, 4 scenarios we can imagine here. Scenario 1, that is status quo. Status quo means the situation that we are seeing today will be maintained in the future as well, where Pakistan is able to maintain its current non-recognition policy. Pakistan, no matter what, would not recognize Israel as a legitimate state as long as the Palestine is not created as a separate country. Scenario 2, quite back channel contacts we have seen taking place between US and Pakistan for many times. So informal engagement without official recognition can take place. That means Pakistan would not take a hardline approach against Israel. It would continue with an informal back channel engagement. However, officially it would never recognize Israel. Third scenario is conditional normalization, possible only after progress on Palestinian statehood. That means if Israel also compromises and then agree to some extent to grant statehood to Palestine, then Pakistan can conditionally accept Israel's existence and come on board with the Abraham Accord. Scenario 4th, increased external pressure. That's what Donald Trump is known for, by using tariff as a tool, by using trade dollars as a tool. So that can cause renewed diplomatic effort from the major powers that can pressurize and force Pakistani leadership to make concessions and compromises on its long-standing policy against Israel. In conclusion, what we can say that Pakistan, as of now, has vociferously, strongly rejected the claim that it can be part of Abraham Accord, and it is a clear reflection of its ideological and political realities. Second, Abraham Accord, though it has been considered as a major breakthrough, it is facing severe limitations because of the lesser number of countries engaged here, but it can act as a nucleus which would reshape the Middle Eastern diplomacy and may in possible future can bring the Israel-Palestine dispute to a cooling end. Palestine remains central to Pakistan's foreign policy narrative. There is no denying that. Domestic politics heavily is influencing the external relations of Pakistan, and that's why debate over normalization is likely to continue in coming year. We are not going to see a significant result or change the policy in the recent future. We have to wait, watch and see that how this entire situation unfolds. So that's all for this particular video. Thank you very much.